Good morning, afternoon, or evening, wherever you may be, Plappers. Gregor's probably laughing right now because we call ourselves Plappers. It's just produced like a pro
Levers.
academy at the end, so we call ourselves Plappers.
So it's a Plap Academy.
Yes. Yeah, it's a bit weird for newcomers when they come in and everyone's calling each other's Plappers. Or Plappanauts, or Plapperanians, I think I've heard as well. How are you, my friend?
Not too bad, not too bad. Good to see you.
Yeah, you too. It's been a little while since we tried to organise this. Obviously, we're both pretty busy people. You're obviously really, really busy with all the Studio One stuff. So I'm very happy to have you here.
Thanks. Yeah,
And
super happy to be here.
As you know, I've prepared some questions for you. But anyone else who is watching here, any of the Plappers who'd like to ask Gregor any questions, please type them in the comments and I'll see and make sure if I can, see them all come through. Hopefully we get some people to join us. So before we start, we actually, we do a few meetups, don't we, Gregor, over the world for Studio One?
Absolutely. Yeah, it's a community-driven effort, basically. And we were originally planning to have them in person, but that was before the pandemic broke out everywhere. And ever since, we're trying to do it via Zoom and Google Hangout, and it's been a very big success, actually. We've done more than a dozen now of these meetups all over the world, and it's incredibly easy to get started. It's just a couple of people who are motivated to talk with other Studio One enthusiasts in their area. And if you want to start one, just hit us up with a date and time and we make it happen at s1meetups@presonus.com. That's s1meetups@presonus.com. With the one, just the numerical one.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So just for you guys in the academy who may not know of these, I've also started an Australian page at the moment. Hopefully we can get some members on there soon.
Awesome.
And we will, I'm pretty sure there's a couple of other pages around the world that you could join as well. But just keep an eye out for their e-meetups. They're lots of fun. You get to meet some interesting people who use Studio One in all different kinds of ways.
Definitely.
The guys I spoke to the other night were actually, doing orchestral stuff with Studio One and Notion, which is really, really cool.
Interesting.
It's some of the interesting stuff that I like to see. So hopefully when all this, lockdown and stuff comes away, I can go and visit some of these guys. I'd really like that.
That'd be ideal for sure. Yeah, I should also mention that if you want to see which meetups are already scheduled, then you can always go to presonus.com/events, and there you're going to see all the e-meetups that are coming up.
Excellent. Thank you for that. So, Mr. Gregor. Big G, as I like to call it.
Big G, beautiful, yeah.
What's been your musical journey so far? What got you started? Did you have any family that were musicians?
How far do you want to go back? You want to go way back, I guess.
we can go way back.
Okay, we can go way back. We have the time. Yeah, both my parents were or are great music enthusiasts. They're not musicians themselves, but they've always had great passion for music. Kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum, whereas my father really enjoys listening to Bach and classical music. My mom listens to anything from the Beatles to Anthrax. So she's like all over the spectrum. She listens to heavy metal stuff, but also classical stuff. So I grew up with a very, varied taste for sure. But in the early years, I was more of a classical music educated kid, I would say, going to the church choir, learning how to play trumpet because we had to play an instrument as well. Did that until I was 12 years or so. And then I just had that growing passion for electronic music, synthesizers and drum machines, maybe because nobody else in my school was into that stuff back then, so it was even cooler. And yeah, I just got really into techno back then, into house music, and it kept evolving, I guess. So these days I'm very much at home in the electronic music field.
Do you have any other brothers or sisters that are into music?
I do have an older brother, yeah, but he's just I would say a hobbyist. Like he's more of an avid listener, likes techno music a lot, but he doesn't produce anything himself.
Right. Okay.
It doesn't,
Yeah. So the other question I had for you is, what's your main instrument? Do you have an instrument? Do you play keyboards, obviously, at the background there?
Yeah, although I really can't be called an instrumentalist by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not like a drummer like you are. I mean, you're really, really good at it. I do play keyboards a bit, but I would say that I'm more a producer, mixing engineer kind of guy.
Yeah.
That's clearly my forte more than anything else, I'd say.
Right, okay. So you didn't start on piano or anything like that in your younger years?
I did start playing trumpet, and I did pick up a bit of piano, but most of it was self-taught. So,
right,
yeah.
Okay. So what brought you to the Presonus family? And I have another question before that, if you'd like to answer it. Did you
Sure.
used to work for Reaper? Did you use Reaper at all?
I used to play in a band called Reaper, but I wasn't involved with the software. No.
Right, because I think I saw on your Facebook somewhere where you said you used to
Yeah.
Reaper.
That's a band I used to play with. Yeah.
Right. See, you got to
That's
put
funny.
2 and 2 here together. That's awesome. I'm just checking on the live stream. It seems to have all sorts of problems. But anyway, that's what happens when we do these things. So how long ago was that you joined Presonus?
So the whole story of me starting for Presonus goes back to me just being a user and trying to become self-employed with my studio here. And I was essentially looking for a software that allowed me to work faster than with Cubase.
Okay.
And Studio One did allow me to do that, although I had various, feature suggestions and bug reports, and I submitted those because essentially out of my own self interest, my own personal necessity, should I say. And then I kept talking to the guys behind the scenes, the developers, because I kept coming up with reports and ideas and feedbacks. So my name was somewhat known on the inside. And then at the Superbooth convention in Germany, I think that was 2018, I met Arndt Kaiser, who's the general manager of Presonus Software in Hamburg. And we got to talk for his, he had like, I think 30 minutes time in between his lunch break. And we just talked about Studio One and a couple ideas I have. And then, I kind of forgot about that conversation, just kept using Studio One. And half a year later, he called me and asked if I would do workshops for the German music dealers in Studio One, because he still remembered our conversation that we had. And he was very, how should I say, maybe impressed or something by my Studio One knowledge. And he thought that I could probably educate people well on it. And I've never done a presentation on anything for longer than 30 minutes.
Right.
Quite frankly, I've never done like anything like that outside from school, and certainly not for such a long period of time. And my first ever presentation was at Music Store in Germany with like 50 people present, and it went live uncut on YouTube. So that was really like being pushed into the cold water, because if you mess up, then that's always on YouTube, like your first big fail, and everybody sees you, it's like laughing at you peeing your pants or something.
Yeah.
So, right. But fortunately, that went well, and they invited me back. And then I got involved with the former German distributor of Presonus in Germany that was Hyperactive. That was what they were called. And then I kept doing the workshops, and then eventually, when Presonus went direct as a distributor in Germany, I switched over to Presonus full time, and now I'm actually self-employed, working for Presonus, but also doing my studio here.
Wow. So cool. It's amazing how things and stories begin, isn't it? I always ask people, where did they start and how did it come about, to where they are now? And it's always interesting. You were pretty much doing your own thing anyway when they picked you up, by the sounds of it. So that's
correct, yeah.
Very, very interesting. So obviously you're still enjoying it there?
Very much so.
And do you get to Baton Rouge very often?
Well, I was planning to. I only started working in this position as the software specialist for Presonus worldwide, so to say, in September last year. And my first trip to Baton Rouge was right after NAMM. I did the NAMM show, and then I went over to Baton Rouge for a week.
Yep.
And the original plan was that I would come back to Baton Rouge in April to just film a couple more things and just be more in touch with the people there. But then the whole pandemic happened, so ever since we're kind of doing it remote. So I'm not there as often as I would like to be, but hopefully that's going to change in the future.
Right. So let me cast your mind back maybe a couple of years ago when you just joined Presonus, taking on the role as software specialist. Was there anything that you learnt early on that you could share with people that maybe, that could be an invaluable lesson for people? Especially being dropped into the deep end like that, like a company like Presonus, who are becoming bigger and bigger and bigger as we even speak now. So is there anything that you could probably pass on, maybe on the studio side of things, that people could learn from?
And the first thing that came to my mind is really like the meetups and the meetups that we already talked about, because it's all about removing the boundaries, the communication boundaries between the company and the customers, right? I think that we have to be transparent and we have to be agile. So what I mean by that is that we have to be always monitoring, always looking at the feedback people are giving. And if they have great suggestions, we need to be agile in a way that we can implement them without having like a static process, So sometimes stuff that's just really cool and that can be done easily and quickly needs to be able to jump the queue, even though there might be a whole backlog of tickets internally. I'm, very much in favor of just working towards what the customers need, because that's where I come from. I remember exactly what it's like being a Studio One user, trying to make it my business. And I was just hoping that the developers would be using it in the way I am. And that's kind of the mindset I'm trying to carry forth, so to say, in my role today, that I'm, sort of an advocate for the customer almost, and try to push the ideas that I think are really valuable and getting us forward.
Yeah, that is a huge thing for Presonus to be doing. Even the meetup we had the other night, one of the guys we talked to hadn't even taken his Presonus gear out of the packaging, and he was straight on an meetup.
That's amazing.
Less than 24 hours he'd had the package, hadn't even installed Studio One, and it was just, even then, overwhelmed with joy that here's a group of us sitting together talking about Studio One and how good it is. Obviously, a person like me who really enjoys Studio One because it works for me. And I'm not just saying Studio One is awesome if it's not. I'm not endorsed by anybody. So he was just blown away that we had this little community thing started. And I think Presonus have it right. We need to be able to get those customer voices heard and implemented straight into the product.
I couldn't agree more. Absolutely.
So I think that's a great thing that they're doing. And as we talked off the live stream here before about, I've just lost my train of thought. But anyway, I won't be able to pick that back up again. So I think...
but also if you consider the fact that the previous meetup that you did, where our customer success manager John Blaze was up like 5 a.m. or something participate, that's also something you don't see in every company. Just to gather some feedback. What a legend that guy.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say. It's a community. That's what I like about Presonus, and especially this Produce Like a Pro Academy that we're in. Having that community vibe is what we all need, especially now. Yeah, especially
exactly.
now.
And also, removing these communication boundaries, because very often you're kind of stuck in, traditional tiers of support and trying to get to the next tier to get some information. And while that is important to a certain degree, and while we have super competent people at every level at Presonus, I still think that it is important sometimes that there are other ways of communicating your feedback to the company than the traditional tried and tested ones.
Yeah. Forums and things like that. And
yeah,
a lot of the things that I see come up all the time is people moving from another DAW to Studio One. I think there's another guy I was talking to the other day actually who went to Studio One and found that the first thing that hit him in a big way was the community of people willing to help him on the website, you know, or on the Facebook page, and everyone was ready to help him. And he just said, man, my other DAW, you would spend all day trying to chat to people to work things out, and it would never work. You go to this Studio One thing and bam, you know, I can get it to work, and off it goes, which is very, very
that's
cool.
Brilliant, yeah.
So let's change gears a little bit here. Do you drive, Gregor?
I do drive.
You do? Okay, I'm going to ask you, which people get surprised of this question, but do you have a favourite driving song? And it's not allowed to be the one that you made.
Oh yeah, for sure, for sure. You listen to your own music?
How do you expect people?
It really depends on the mood I'm in, though. I mean, if we're driving German Autobahn and there's no speed limits, then I would probably go for some harder music, like some electro-industrial, I don't know, like bands like Three Teeth or Aesthetic Perfection, that older stuff. But I'm also a big fan of singer-songwriter music, like acoustic country music from Nashville. There's people like Michael Shines, Andy Gullahorn that I really love.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah.
I didn't expect that from you, because being an electronic musician, a lot of them don't listen to that stuff, but that's very cool. I actually watched the Garth Brooks documentary on Netflix the other night. If you haven't seen that, that's pretty cool, even if you don't like country music.
What's it called?
I think it's just called History of Garth Brooks Biography, sorry.
Okay, yeah.
It's really, really cool. Geez, that guy broke a whole heap of... I didn't even know that he still holds the records for most albums sold in the US.
I had no idea. Wow.
Neither did I.
So it's called the Garth Brooks, what did you say? What was it called on Netflix?
Biography?
Yeah.
I'm going to look it up for you now, because...
yeah, I'd be really interested in that, actually.
And it was actually, by the look of it, it was filmed at Blackbird. I don't know whether you've been to that studio in Nashville.
I have never been to a studio in Nashville. I played a gig in Nashville, but I didn't have enough time to, visit some studios and have a look around.
Yeah, I'm just checking on the stream because there's, as I said, there's few little problems, but I'll probably just post this up later on anyway.
Okay.
So yeah, no, it was very entertaining. He's very much a storyteller kind of writer, and I didn't think he was like that. I thought he was just straight Nashville country guy, but he filled stadiums full of people. Played parks to almost over 1 million people, and that stuff just blew me away.
That's incredible. Yeah, I knew that he's super famous and popular, but I had no idea he would draw that kind of crowd. Wow.
Yeah, that's pretty huge. Like for a country singer to do that. I think he broke records in Ireland, all over the place. I'm just looking it up for you now, Gregor, right on my phone.
On Netflix, yeah, on your recently watched list.
Yes. Okay, it's called Garth Brooks, The Road I'm On.
Garth Brooks, The
Road I'm On, yeah.
Got it. Thank you so much.
So I don't know whether you've got... Because they changed the content all over the place, don't they?
They do, yeah. So my wife is always very upset that she can't watch the next season of Grey's Anatomy before it's out everywhere else in the country or in the continents.
I'm so surprised that show is so huge again.
Oh yeah, they have all kinds of rip-offs of it now, like private clinic. I think one is called on New Amsterdam. There's so many popping up, but they're good TV every once in a while.
Yeah,
for
it's
sure.
Absolutely crazy that those shows are coming back again.
Yeah, I mean, you can make anything work in these days now, where everybody's home.
So speaking of spare time, if you got any, what do you do in your spare time, Gregor?
Oh, nice transition there. I think since there's so much overlap between what I do in my free time and what I do for a living, there's not that much free time left. But I do have a big passion for food and cooking, and I do play card games every once in a while.
Yep. Yeah. For me, I'm into my PS4.
Oh, cool! Yeah, awesome. Yeah.
I'm not a gamer per se. I just do it to relax or do driving simulators and stuff, just to put my mind away from everything else.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I'm very much the same with online card games. Most of the time, I'm doing it on the computer, so I can still make a beat as I'm doing
nice.
it. Still waiting for the PlayStation 4 DAW.
Yeah. That would be awesome. Actually, there was PlayStation 2 had one. Believe it or not.
Really?
Yeah.
What was it called?
Beat.
Beats. All right.
You look it up. It's pretty cool. Codemasters actually did it, and it's not too bad. I think I remember putting a few loops together on there and making something that'd be very interesting to dig up, I think.
Indeed. Yeah, I would love to hear it.
So, what if you like cooking? What's the dish in your house that gets made the most?
It's probably pasta dishes because they're so easy, right?
Yeah.
But it's very fascinating to me, that whole emulsification thing, what you can do with just oil and starchy water, and how you can make creamy sauces from that without actually using any cream. So
yeah,
that's something that I really enjoy. All these classic Roman pasta dishes.
Spaghetti bolognese in our house.
Yeah, or like the carbonara,
Yeah.
aglio olio, alla gricia, all those kind of.
Yum.
Yeah, beautiful.
So what's coming up for you in the future? What do you see yourself doing? Anything different after this pandemic is eased off a little bit?
Yeah, I kind of stopped predicting the future a while ago because I was always wrong. So I just hope that I can go back to Baton Rouge very, very soon, to see my colleagues and my friends. So yeah, that's something that I truly missed out on because of the pandemic. So I hope that, that airport security is not going to change into the nightmare that they're kind of predicting.
Yeah. So, maybe an interesting question for you. You may not know the answer to, though. I find in Australia, after this pandemic hit and all our businesses were closed down, there's a lot of businesses who are changing tact. They're either changing a venue, or maybe it was a pub or club who didn't have a restaurant before and they're going to open one up now. Do you think Presonus, this may have hit them in a certain way that they might do something different, maybe change location or manufacturing or anything like that?
It's quite interesting because we were predicting, or we were kind of worried that the pandemic would hit us and it would be like a massive recession. We would have to, let a lot of people go. But the opposite kind of happened. Some of the best months in Presonus history. And I think that has to do with our strong software, and that we're not just producing, hardware and things that you can only use in a club environment or a festival environment, like big PA speakers or live mixing desks. We're also making, interfaces for people who do podcasts, who do home recording, and all these kind of things that are really in demand now. Also, if you want to do Zoom meetings, we have everything that is required to set up like a top-notch professional sounding Zoom meeting. So I think that really played to our advantage. That kind of, I don't know if it's a foresight because nobody can really predict such a thing happening, but that we just diversified our brand a little bit. I think that really helped us a lot. So we don't have any necessity to relocate anything as of right now, I think.
Yeah. And I think too, it's opened up. I'm very surprised of how many people didn't realize that you can get quite a lot done online.
Absolutely.
You know, there's even, I've heard here in Brisbane, in Queensland, there's a few big office buildings that are kind of thinking twice about how much staff they need in the building at once. You know, they're finding people's productivity has gone through the roof because they're focused on things better at home. You know, looking after kids, for instance, is a huge job. So when a parent has actually got when they've got some time to do their work, they're very focused for that 2 or 3 hours, and they seem to get a lot more done. So I just think people are changing their perspectives a little bit, you know, how much stuff can be done online. And that was an interesting thing too, while I'm thinking of it, at the e-meetups, it's been brought up quite a few times of, you know, being able to collaborate with other users inside Studio One. That would be a huge thing. So I'm not asking you to tell us or anything, but, you know, we're all looking forward to Studio One 5 coming, and I know things are in the pipelines and what that would entail, but, you know, more collaboration stuff would be pretty awesome.
Sure. Yeah, I think that things are being seen in a different light. So that's something that the pandemic has done in a positive way, especially in Germany. I think that internet and, you know, just internet bandwidth, a certain internet bandwidth has always been viewed as something that's, you know, like a luxurious item, that something that's non-essential. And that's changing dramatically now that everybody was asking for online homeschooling, and cities like Hanover, which are like in central Germany, didn't have the bandwidth capacity to do any of this. So I think that it really accelerated the how should I say, the necessity, or like the recognized necessity of building up and improving infrastructure, specifically of our glass fiber networks and stuff like that. So that's something that's really starting to take off now in Germany, and it's long overdue. So I think that was certainly a positive effect.
I think you guys are in exactly the same position we are, because we still have our traditional internet that we had from before, but we do have fiber optics running from the house, but it's only to the node, so we're not even in a direct input to the internet, so it's still a little bit slow. Like, for instance, our or my upstream to Facebook now is only on about, might be 9 megabytes per second. So it's not a great deal.
That's still more than you get in most parts of Germany. Yeah.
Oh, really?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, many places in Germany have like 3 megabits,
Whoa.
you know, upload. So that's like 300 kilobytes or something. I don't know. I'm not very good at math.
Yeah, but that's pretty slow.
Yeah. Extremely low, yeah.
But we're lucky enough now, we're off broadband per se. It's now NBN, we call it here. But, you know, it could be better. Obviously, people are picking up that, you know, to do all this stuff at home does take a bit of bandwidth. You know, if you've got Johnny down in the studio streaming his stuff, and you've got someone upstairs gaming, and his sister's playing, you know, Netflix in a room, you know, it does sort of take its toll on things. But
for sure.
Hopefully that, you know, this pandemic might bring out some good in stuff.
I hope so.
Like
I would certainly hope so. Yeah.
Things like that. So, what about your band and stuff? Have you got stuff coming up?
Yeah, I didn't have too much time for my bands anymore, but I do still produce. I mean, after all, I'm self-employed, so it's not just Presonus that I work for. And if you want to see the the kind of music that I produce, or the kind of services that I still offer there every once in a while. That's studio-dreamcatcher.net. That's my studio website. And if you want to check out some bands that I'm involved in, or that I produced for, mixed, mastered, would be Reaper, which we already mentioned.
Yeah.
Another one is We Are Temporary, Coma Alliance, which actually hit the German charts one time. So that's
nice.
my one chart entry I've ever had.
Yeah.
And another one is called Voltmeister, which is like a modular synthesizer project I do with two very, very dear Dutch friends. And we're basically just getting together, hooking up all our modular synthesizers, and then we're jamming, and everything that we recorded in that jam session gets produced into a track later on. So that's also something that we
so
have on
that was
iTunes.
very much my last question, was where can we find some of your work? Do you have a website personally?
Yeah, that's
studio,
studio-dreamcatcher.net.
Excellent.
Studio-dreamcatcher.net.
Yeah, so you guys, you probably will be watching this later because the live stream is, I think being Friday night here, there's a few of my musician friends who are streaming live tonight as well. So it might be a busy night for people to sort of watch, but that's okay. It's on a private group, so Produce Like a Pro members are usually quite friendly, so they're used to me stuffing up a camera or a microphone, or blasting them with music that might be too loud. So they're all prepared, Gregor. They're all prepared. But
Fantastic. Yeah, we can make it happen in post. We always make it happen in post.
we have a saying here, and it'll be right on the night.
Yeah, just fix it in the mix.
Fix it in the, there's quite a lot of discussion about that saying. Like a pro, sure. We have something we call "there's no experts," and so that's an expert kind of thing to say. Fixed it in the mix. Yeah, that's pretty cool.
I can identify with that for sure.
So look, I've finished my questions anyway. So I usually, you can ask me one or two questions for yourself if you like.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I'm interested to know your background there. You've got, is it Studio One? Is that part of your background for video, or is I can see a desk in the background there?
Yeah, that's just one big Truman Show back there. I mean, that's just the backdrop banner. If that falls, there's all cardboard behind it, so there's nothing. It's just one big lie.
Nice. But the keyboards are real, right?
Yeah, the keyboards are real. Yeah. Oh. Everything until here is real, and everything afterwards is just a big illusion.
Yeah. So you don't have a desk, a console per se there?
I do not have a desk, but I do have like a rack mount desk where I have a couple of things I use for mastering and a couple of outboard things. But that's outside of the screen right now, so I can't really show it.
That's all right.
But maybe I can turn the camera a bit, but that would then you just see the modular. But there's like racks of stuff down here, which you can't see right now.
So probably, my space here is we're set up for rehearsals tomorrow, so there's a lot of stuff.
Yeah, that's something I wanted to ask you actually. So is that like a studio space? Is that a band rehearsal space? What is it?
Look, it's pretty much everything. So it's the studio here where I'm sitting right now is the control room.
Cool.
So I've got all my yummy stuff across here at the moment.
Oh, nice. I've seen Adam. Very cool.
Yeah. Just starting really to get into that, deep dive. Oh, look, there's Gregor.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's the studio space for mixing and stuff like that I can do here. But down the other end, so all my instruments there that I do backing tracks and stuff for people also. Round the corner where you can't see, I have a drum kit set up. And all my PA gear. I don't know whether you know, I do live PA stuff as well. And
I didn't know that, no.
I'm just about to get into live streaming, live gigs, basically. Setting up 4 cameras, streaming that to YouTube or places like that. So
that's awesome.
This place is kind of a mix of everything. So we have rehearsals here. I actually recorded a 9-piece band in here before. Somehow we fit drums, keys, 2 guitarists, bass player, a couple of singers. So it's quite a huge space. The only thing that I have trouble with is it's a very small, very short ceiling.
Yeah.
So I've tried my best to try and deal with the bottom end because it seems to just boom in here.
Yeah, I see that you treated your corners very well and that you have some absorbers at the ceiling. So I think you treated the room quite well, from what I can tell.
Yeah, it took me a little while to sort of, you know what it's like. You sit here and you can hear a reflection over that side, or
oh yeah, for sure.
You can hear it from the ceiling, or you can hear it coming back from the back of the room, that kind of thing. So I just took care of all the early reflections where I'm sitting right now. I get a pretty good result.
I can definitely recommend SonarWorks reference, because once you treated those reflection points and you got rid of all these problems that software can't fix, then SonarWorks comes in to just take care of the frequency response, make that super linear, and it's been one of the biggest revelations for me in recent memory. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, a lot of people think it's just to make like a bathroom sound acceptable, but for me, it's like a tool to make a good room without any big problems sound perfect.
Right.
Essentially, that's what it does for me.
Yeah. I think for me, anyway, is one of the big fallacies is I had a discussion with someone the other night that SonarWorks is not the be all and end all. You still have to sort of treat your room some way.
Yeah, but if you do, like, that's a match made in heaven. You know, a lot of people think it's either or, but I think if you just do both, that's brilliant.
Yes, I definitely agree. Look, me being a little bit older, my ears are kind of set to these speakers and I know exactly what comes out of them. I did try SonarWorks out through those speakers and I just could not handle, this is just me personally, I couldn't handle the way it made my speakers sound. So as soon as I took SonarWorks off, they sounded normal again to me. But where
you can also do like it also has a dry wet, so you can also do a percentage. That's something that helps a lot of people as well. Just like 50% SonarWorks and 50% the natural room sound.
Where I totally love it is for headphones. It can make, I've got these Sennheiser headphones here that what are they? The HD 280s that I've used for many, many years now. And even though I have 2 pairs of exactly the same set of headphones, they do sound different, which is really, really interesting. But what SonarWorks does for me is it doesn't matter which one I pick up. They'll flatten them out really, really well.
Oh, that's lovely. Yeah.
That's awesome. Thanks again for doing this. This is the kind of thing I'd like to do a lot more often. I did try and contact the other guys too, as well as I contacted you last because we sort of found each other last through the meetups. So I sort of sent an email off to Marcus Huskins. I'd like to do an interview with him. His videos are very, very helpful as well. And what's the other guy? His name always...
Joe Giller.
Joe, that's right. Because I think he is a friend of Warren Hewitt, who started Produce Like a Pro. So that's where I came into seeing him was through there. Yeah,
Joe is a great colleague of mine. He's also a Presonus software specialist, super knowledgeable guy, very much in tune with the whole Nashville thing. So if you're, also into that kind of music, that's for sure the guy to talk to.
Yeah. So how many specialists are there, by the way?
There's just the 2 of us for now. There's also many freelance specialists, such as Marcus Hoskins, also an amazing friend of mine. One of the best and most knowledgeable Studio One users in the world, without question.
Okay.
And,
I thought you were.
Yeah,
Gregor.
but so far it's just 2 of us in this solution. Yeah.
I thought you were the one.
I was the first.
the Studio One guru.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Look, I wish I had half the programming skills with Studio One that you guys have. I'm just getting into that world. For me, it's more, your rock bands, traditional kind of recording It's my big tape recorder, I always call it, you know. So I have a separate computer that just runs Studio One, and basically that's it. But I'm still getting into my Atom and getting into the step sequencer that I hadn't got into before. And I've just recently got myself an upgrade for Reason. And I must say, I'm actually absolutely in heaven having Studio One as my door and being able to have that rack of stuff that I normally would use for Reason for right in Studio One. Absolutely awesome.
I love that too. Yeah, I also love using Ableton and Studio One side by side. The drag and drop between the two works really surprisingly well in many cases. So I'm a big proponent of just using two DAWs. There's no reason why you should just use one all the time. You have 5 different compression plugins, so why shouldn't you have a couple different DAWs that are good at different things?
Exactly. I think that's a huge part of what's going to happen as far as, you know, the competition between DAWs is going to be a way now that hopefully we'll see them kind of meld into one huge community of, you know, if you use Pro Tools, so be it. If you use Bitwig, whatever, you know, whatever tools you're ready to use. It was quite funny that in the same week we have an online music store called Other Music, and in the very same week, Michael got back to me about Link Audio and being able to sell Presonus. And on the very same day, I became education support for Pro Tools. All in the one day. So, you know, the transition from Pro Tools to Studio One, I can really help people with now.
Interesting. It was awesome.
Which makes it very interesting. But look, as soon as I'm in Pro Tools, I just want to get back to Studio One because it just just the drag and drop thing, you know, it just does wonders for you.
That's lovely to hear. Have you used Pro Tools for many years, or?
I have, yeah.
Interesting.
I've used Pro Tools ever since it came out. So Pro Tools 5.1, I think, was the first one I used.
When was that?
What year? I can't remember, actually.
Was I even born then?
But this was the very first thing that I got for my home studio. Do you remember those?
No, I don't think I was on this planet yet.
Probably not. But this was the M box. So it had it had Focusrite preamps in it.
It had USB, so I was here already.
Yes. It's not one that Noah used. So yeah, I got into Pro Tools there, and that was version 6 when I first started using it properly.
Interesting.
But then, you know, as the years went on, I have a friend of mine who does video stuff and video editing a lot, and we were doing some location sound, and we needed something that we could record crystal clear audio that wasn't too much to handle. And do you remember when these guys first came out?
Oh yeah, of course, the Fire Studio. Yeah, of course I do. Yeah.
This is a beast of a thing, and it was something I spoke to. Is it Rick? Yes.
Rick Nakvi.
Yeah, I said to him, man, look, I wished you guys would make something with as many inputs again. In such a form factor, because that's 10 inputs.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at the Studio 6.8 that has 6 ins, 8 outs, and that's also a similar form factor. And if you consider the fact that SPDIF is such a versatile connector, that's kind of like a modern Fire Studio to me. Or the Quantum 2, you know, with even better latency and also amazing I/O.
I use that particular Fire Studio as I do something called Rockyoke. I don't think I've spoken to you about that. It's live band karaoke.
That's awesome.
And I play along to tracks and stuff, and I still use that box to this day on stage using the headphones. And
that's incredible. And it still works.
And it still works. And I use it for my in-ear monitoring mix. With the
I mean, how old is that thing? That's like 15 years. How many years is that?
Oh, look, this was probably early
2000s or something, huh?
Yeah, probably 2003, maybe.
Yeah.
So it's still going. I've dropped it 4 or 5 times. A friend of mine had one and was just going to throw it away, so I've got a spare one.
Brilliant.
And they work great. Like, I mean, I use it as a small digital mixer. It's excellent.
Yeah, fantastic. Yeah, I mean, it's just incredible, like the value that you've gotten from Presonus products ever since the Fire Pod and the Fire Studio.
Yeah, and where I was going with that was that it came with a disc with Studio One, the very first incarnation of the software.
Yeah, that was 2010 then, probably, right? Because Studio One is like 10 years old now.
Oh yeah, it probably is.
Yeah.
So it's probably.
I think the Fire Studio is even older than that. Yeah.
Right, but I think they used to come. I can't remember. Can't remember.
I have to look up when the Fire Studio came out.
Yeah, that would be very, very interesting. But where I was going with that is that I needed, because I kept with Pro Tools. I had a DigiDesign Digi 003 that I used on my desk, and that was getting a little bit old in the tooth, so I decided to upgrade. And what happened was I bought my Studio 192, which I still use today. And it also came with Studio One, so I thought, well, maybe I should just check this program out just to see what it was like. That finished it. I was done by then. So started using it. So that's my little journey to Studio One.
That's beautiful. I just found like an article from Sound on the Fire Studio, which was 2007, so not quite as old as we thought it is, but
right.
Yeah.
But 13 years ago.
Yeah, that's still a long time. I thought like 15 years or something. But,
yeah, but that was my little story there with that, and you know, I still use Pro Tools to this day, because every now and then I'll get a session that someone will say, can you mix this for me? And now it's just, I have a look at the session very quickly, export the AAF into Studio One, and I don't I open Pro Tools up again after that. Ableton Live, I used to use that in a live situation a lot. It's a great program, that.
Absolutely.
It works very, very well. Hey, mate, thank you very much for coming in and doing this interview for me, even though...
Yeah, my absolute pleasure. It was great.
Even though this live stream seems to be a little bit up and down. We got a couple of people watching. There was no questions, so you escaped that one.
Lovely.
But hopefully we can marry these two recordings that we've both done together. Yeah. Because I got a nice full screen of you throughout the video. So I don't know, what was my audio like? Is it coming through okay?
Yeah, your audio sounded good on my end. I have to check on the recording, but it should be usable for sure.
Okay, great. Because we've got both now, really.
Yeah, exactly. So we should be able to marry them.
So thank you again. I'll let you get on with your day. It's coming up to 11 o'clock for you?
Yeah, it's 11 o'clock now, close to noon.
Yeah, a friend of mine is going on streaming online at about 7, so it's just coming on to 7 p.m. here now.
Fantastic.
I almost did put it in my calendar, this interview, as tomorrow, thinking you're a day behind, but you're not. You're only just starting your day, and I'm finishing mine.
That's right. It's sometimes confusing. I mean, so many different time zones, especially when you're dealing with the meetups. I get them confused constantly.
Yeah. And that's another reason we decided to do the Aussie one, because there were a lot of people saying, "Oh, we didn't know when it was going to be on." But
yeah.
That. Look, I thank you again.
Thank you so much, Eddie.
We'll see you again. Hopefully, sometime soon. We'll get together and do a few things. Hopefully, the community for this Aussie site that I've got going, you can come on and talk to us about stuff if you want.
Yeah, I would love that, for sure.
Which would be very cool. Hopefully one day you'll come to Australia, once we get all this epidemic thing or pandemic thing sorted out. Yeah. And that would be awesome. Have you ever been to Australia?
No, my wife has been to Brisbane and she loved it so much. She always talks about it. So I would love to see Brisbane and Melbourne. Yeah.
I'm only half an hour north of Brisbane.
So yeah, that'd be on my spots to visit for sure, if I may.
No, definitely. All right, man.
Well, you're always welcome in Germany yourself. So
Yes.
if
Look,
you ever,
hopefully I'll get there one day. I was hoping to visit the States later this year, but I don't think that'll be happening for another year or so now. But,
it doesn't look like it.
Very, very sad. And besides that, I probably wouldn't want to go at the moment, considering what's happening over there. Very, very sad. But anyway, we will just keep making music and, building this community.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for what you do, Andy. It's awesome.
No
Super
worries,
good
my
fun.
friend. All right. I'll end this live stream here. If there's anyone watching, this is your last chance to type any questions if you've got anything for Gregor. Otherwise, after we do put the video together and post it back up again, I'm sure Gregor will be up to asking some questions.
Of course.